So let's get started. Today we will talk about the planning tools and the techniques. Planning tools and techniques. What the managers need to have your full planning and to have your means and tools and techniques for you to have the proper planning. So if you want to have the proper and successful planning, we need to have some significant techniques that has been accredited and has been used and has been approved and has been experienced by many scholars and many entrepreneurs or many managers that have implemented such techniques in their company. So this chapter will complete the description of the planning in the strategic management as the important function in the management. Various approaches and techniques will be presented and will be studied, including the environmental and the current dynamic and complex environment. Also, we will get through the quantitative techniques and qualitative techniques, and these techniques will assist us in anticipating and in forecasting the future of the business environment for managers. So techniques for assessing the environment. So I'm a manager. I need to study the external environment. I have the environment. I'm a manager. I need to know who's my customers. How can I serve them? How can I do well with them? I need to have some techniques in order for me to assess and value and evaluate the customers. So in the strategic management process, actually, it is important for us to assess the organization's environment. And there are actually many ways and many types to assess the environment. The first one is the environmental scanning. The second one is the forecasting. The third one is the benchmarking. So we will, inshallah, go through these three concepts together in details. So the environmental scanning is the screening of the large amounts of information to anticipate, to forecast, to predict and interpret, to explain the changes that happen in the environment. Or the extensive environmental scanning is likely to reveal the issues and concerns that could affect the organization's current and or planned activities. So if we have make extensive, a deep, comprehensive environmental scanning, this will reveal, this will discover, this will issues for us some issues and concerns that might affect the business and might affect the management in general. So based on the scan environment and the information gathered, an organization can play well and strategically. So based on this proper scanning from the environment, we can go through successfully in running our business. Competitor scanning, one of the most extensive and significant and essential environmental scanning for you as a manager is to scan and discover your external external competitor So one of the fastest growing areas of the environmental scanning is the competitor intelligence. So it is a process by which the organizations gather the information about their competitors and get answers for what? To questions, such questions. What are they? Who are they? What are they doing? How will what they are doing and how will they affect us? So you need to know as a manager, you need to know who's your competitors, You need to know what are they selling. You need to know what are they doing. You need to know how they can manage and in this service life. The competitor intelligence experts suggest that 80% of what managers need to know about the competitors can be found from their own employees, suppliers, and customers. So if you want to get through the external competitors, you don't have to go far. You don't have to go far. You don't have to go far. You can go and ask your current customers. You can go and investigate with your employees. You can go and investigate and ask your suppliers. Global scanning. So the world market become more complex and dynamic. The world outside the company is getting in a rapidly changing. So the managers here have expanded their scope of scanning efforts to gain the vital information on the global forces that might affect their organizations. So the managers here try always to expand their scanning efforts. Why? To get the vital information on the competitors' intelligence. So the value of the global scanning to managers is to largely dependent on the extent of the organization's global activities global activities. So currently there are many international reports available outside there in the internet website that you can get your competitors, you can get some information which could be vital and essential for you as a manager to scan your external environment. So what is the forecasting? Forecasting is means predicting. Forecasting means predicting, anticipating, getting into the future. So the forecasting is an important part of planning, and managers need to forecast that will allow them to predict the future events effectively and in a timely manner. In a timely manner means here in a good time, which is effective and efficient. So it provides the information that will facilitate the decision making. So the forecasting actually is a very important tool for managers to facilitate the decision making. Also, it can be that the managers can make their forecasting more effective by several elements. First, it could be applied in a rapidly changing environment. It could be applied in a rapidly changing environment. So the forecasting tools will be more effective if we implement such a tools in the rapidly changing environment. And we need to use the symbol forecasting technique. You use the symbol. As long as you are using a symbol forecasting technique, you will be survived. As long as you are using a complex forecasting technique, will be a bit tough and hard working for you and for your own staff. So you need to involve more in people in the process. When you are doing a forecasting, you need to involve your first, second, and third lines of managers. You need also to using the rolling forecast that look 12 to 18 months ahead. Whether you are doing a strategic planning, whether your forecasting purpose is to do the strategic planning, you need to have at least 1 year to 2 years forecasting or planning. You need also to be aware of the random events. You need to be aware of the random events. As you know that the company is being surrounded by a rapidly changing environment. So, but this rapidly changing environment requires from us to be aware of the required competitors. So the forecasting can be practiced and can be improved by time to time, and at least within the first year of practicing the forecasting tool and technique. So as you can see, we can have a diagram or graph for our company achievements, our company achievement. So we can achieve or we can forecast. We can forecast that the company, the particular company will be in 2020 have been accomplished several goals. Among one of these goals that we will penetrate the local and international market. Quantitative forecasting, it applies a set of mechanical rules to the series of the past data to predict the outcome. The quantitative here totally depend on the past information. For us to read and understand the past information and data for us to predict and anticipate and to forecast the future. So these techniques are preferred when the managers have sufficient hard data that can be used. For examples, the regression models and the econometric models could be both as a good tools of anticipating, or also we have another one tool called blot tools to anticipate and forecast for the future. And this is available in the market as a software packages like SPSS, like models, like PLS, like CLS. This is all techniques required and formed in a software applications. So here usually office of the statistics of various countries and international agencies are the main source of data. So this one could be a multiple choice of questions that I might ask you, what is the most main source of data for the managers? The answer is will be the international agencies for statistics. The international agencies for statistics. What is the qualitative forecasting? What is the qualitative? So we have talked about the quantitative, and now we will talk about the qualitative. So the qualitative, it is hard. It is used when the precise data are limited. So we normally go through the qualitative when the data, when the numbers are missing, and it's hard to explain. So examples are sales force composition and customer evaluation. And customer evaluation are both two examples of the qualitative forecasting. So it is usually sourced through the interview and the feedback of the customers. So for the qualitative forecasting, we use only observation, interview, feedback, and from the customers. Whereas if you go back here, the quantitative tools and techniques is mainly done and conducted by survey, by survey. So the expert interview is conducted on a certain phenomena to evaluate and to forecast the future. What is the benchmarking? What is the benchmarking? Benchmarking is actually is the search for the best practice among the competitors or non-competitors that lead to their superior performance. So the benchmarking means here having the team force in a certain company and take this team force in a certain company and go outside the company to search for the benchmarking, to search for the best standards that have been applied outside, and see these standards and do and practice and implement what the competitors outside doing to that lead them to the best performance. So the basic idea is that managers can improve performance by analyzing and then copying the methods of the leaders in the various fields. So we just copy, we just tangle, we just see, we just analyze what is the best practice for them for their superior performance. So techniques for allocating the resources. I have resources outside and inside, whether it's human resources, whether it is national resources. I need to determine, I need to see, I need to determine these kind of resources. So before the managers can organize and lead in order to implement the goals, they must have the resources. They must have the resources, whether it is a natural resources or whether it is a natural or human resources which can assist of the organizations. There are four techniques for allocating. There are four techniques actually to allocate the resources. What are these techniques? Budget. Budget is one of the most famous and important technique to allocate the resources. It's a numerical plan for allocating the resources to the specific activities. So the managers here typically prepare the budgets for the revenues, expenses, and large capital expenditures such as the equipment. A budget is a plan done by the top management, okay, to anticipate for how much we are going to use, how much money are we going to use next year. So it's a kind of anticipating tools. So the budget is one planning technique that most managers, regardless of the organizational level, use. So it is the important managerial activity because it forces the financial discipline and structural throughout the organization. So scheduling. What's the meaning of scheduling? This is about allocating the resources by detailing what activities have to be done, the order in which they are to be completed, and who's to do the research, allocating for resources, and when they are to be completed. So I have put the budget. Okay, so the scheduling put actually the framework, the frame time work on when these certain activities will be done. So some useful techniques and scheduling devices are using, such as the giant chart or Gantt chart. What's the Gantt chart? It's a bar graph with the time of the horizontal axis and the activities to be scheduled on the vertical axis. The bar shows the output, both planned and the actual, over a period of time. It is visually shows when the tasks are supposed to be done and compares with the actual progress on each. So you can see here the Gantt chart. Gantt is the name of the scholar who invent such tool for predicting or scheduling the resources. So as we can see here in the Gantt chart, we have the task column. We have the task column, which means the name of the task. We have the who's going to do this task, and we have the time frame to start on with this task, and we have the time frame to finish and finalize this task. So the Gantt chart we can see here, it shows us the progress of our tasks given by the management, and it shows the actual time needed to finish the task. Another tool to predict and scheduling the tasks is called break-even points or break-even analysis. Break-even analysis is a widely used resources allocation technique to help managers to determine the break-even point. To compute the break-even point, which is BE, a manager needs to know the unit price of the product being sold, which we represented as a P. So the P means here the unit price. The variable cost here we represent it as a VS, the variable cost. So how much this cost will vary from time to time. And the total fixed costs. The total fixed costs means how much cost money am I paying for the particular product. The break-even point could be illustrated on the following formula. BE, which is the break-even point, which we need to calculate, the TFC, which is the price of the unit product, and the P, which is the product being sold, and the VS, which is the fixed total amount of money for the certain product. So the break-even point or break-even level represents the sales amount in either unit or revenue. So this break-even point helps us to present the sales force management by whether a point or quantity or a revenue in a yearly basis. So this required to cover the total cost consisting of the both fixed and variable cost. Variable means not fixed. Fixed means the constant amount of money. So to the company, so the total profit at the break-even point should be 0. So here have a look on the chart for the break-even point chart. We could see here the TR, the TS, and this FC, which is the fixed cost, and the TS and the TR, which is the profit. And actually, the break-even point at the end should be here at this part, which is the circle. The red circle should be 0, the quantity sold. Linear programming. Linear programming is also called a method to achieve the best outcome. Is a method to achieve the best outcome, such as the maximum profit or lowest cost. So linear programming is a method that helps us to determine how much the minimum cost will achieve the company and how much the maximum profit that the certain company can achieve in a certain time. Okay, So the linear programming is used to solve the problems such as the selecting transportation routes to minimize the shipping cost. Linear programming is widely used by the Ministry of the Transportation. They use the linear programming to minimize the shipping cost for the customers and for the citizens on the peoples, and to select the transportation route to minimize the cost for the customers. So as we can see here from the chart, we have many ways and many routes for the Ministry of Transportation. So the linear programming will choose the maximum the maximum profit and the minimum cost to establish a way and a route that could maximize the profit and minimize the tax, or let's say the minimum that the customer pay. And also it is supported with the frame time of work, Contemporary planning techniques. Today's managers, they face the challenges of the planning in the environmental that is both dynamic and complex. Complex. The two planning techniques that are appropriate for this type of environment are project management, is the tasks of getting the project activities done on time, within the certain budget that has been approved by the top management and according to the specifications. The project planning process include defining the project goals, identifying all the activities in the project and the resources needed to do, and also establish the sequences of the completion needs, and also determine the project completion date, and also comparing the project schedule to the goals and make any adjustments if necessary. And in addition, also to determine the additional resources requirement. A scenario planning is a consistent view of what the future will be likely to be. So the developing the scenarios can also be described as the contingency planning, which is let's say if this what happens, then these are the actions we need to take. Contingency planning here means predicting the futures, but in a negative way. So, if these certain circumstances will happen in the future, so what kind of action need to be done by the management? So, the process of doing the scenario causes the cities, the executives, such as the CEO, to rethink again and to clarify the essence of the business environment in ways they mostly certainly have never done before. Conclusion: there are various techniques for assessing the environment as well as for allocating the resources. The appropriate use of these techniques will ensure that the organization strategically move ahead in its industry. The last one is the organizations may employ the quantitative techniques and the qualitative techniques such as the linear programming, the probability theory, and the qualitative techniques such as the survey. As I have told you, the techniques, the tools for the quantitative method is mainly use the survey of expert. For the quantitative, approach, we use normally the interviews, the observations, and the feedback of the customers. Okay, guys, thank you very much for today. Please, if you have any question, you can ask me before you leave.